Hello and welcome. My name is Shauna C. Daniels. I'm the Civic Engagement Manager for Great Rivers Greenway. I want to begin by thanking you all for participating in this community meeting to review the preliminary design for the Brickline Greenway North Connector. Your voice is much needed in our ongoing public-private dialogue about this major infrastructure project in the heart of St. Louis City. Your participation allows for a community-driven effort in a design that is reflective of the communities this greenway will pass through. This is truly a bold effort for St. Louis, and to achieve the vision for the Brickline Greenway, it will take all of us. So again, thank you for your time, and thank you for joining the community-led planning for the Brickline Greenway. So why are we here? Great Rivers Greenway, with the City of St. Louis and hundreds of community partners and local stakeholders, is spearheading an effort to build more than 10 miles of greenway in the heart of St. Louis City. And who is Great Rivers Greenway? We are your regional parks and recreation district. We plan, design, and build a network of greenways that connect our region's rivers, our parks, our communities, and our people. We have 18 active greenway projects underway, 130 miles of greenways built to date in St. Louis City, St. Louis County, and St. Charles County, and a larger vision to bring more than 600 miles of greenways across our region. We were created in the year 2000 by a taxpayer vote to create this district to steward this trail network. But we don't do our work in a vacuum. We've built successful working partnerships with more than 250 municipalities and institutions. And we played a pivotal role in the City Arch River Project, a $380 million public-private partnership to complete the vision of the Gateway Arch National Park and to connect it to the heart of our city. It is with community input and community partners that we can successfully bring these projects and this Greenway network to life. And we are excited today to add to this network and bring to you the Brickline Greenway, the centerpiece of the Greenway system, and our most ambitious project yet. The Brickline Greenway envisions not just a path, but a movement for the region. This project encourages ownership from everyone and focuses on inclusive planning and collaborative decision-making. With hundreds of partners involved in planning efforts, including you, community voices drive design. The Brickline Greenway is designed to connect us, bringing everyone to the collective table. This is a project built by St. Louis for St. Louis, and it is built to have great impact in and for St. Louis, from quality of life and environmental excellence to being a catalyst for jobs and economic development opportunities. The Greenway intends to tangibly and concretely make our city and our entire region stronger. The Brickline Greenway intends to connect Forest Park to the Arch and Fairground Park to Tower Grove Park, hundreds of destinations and 14 St. Louis City neighborhoods in between, with more than 10 miles of greenway. Great Rivers Greenway is in the process of planning, designing, and development of several segments, including the North Connector. My colleague Lonnie Boring will tell you more about the Brickline Greenway North Connector.
All right, well, good evening, everyone. The North Connector project of the Brickline Greenway is one of critical importance for us, largely in part because we have so many multiple partners working in this area, and our extensive community engagement really highlighted this area as one of the first and early action items for the Brickline Greenway. It begins at Fairground Park in the north, travels south on Grand Boulevard to Cass, where it makes a quick jog over to Spring Avenue before continuing south down Spring Avenue, eventually connecting with St. Louis University campus, and ultimately all the way to the Midtown area and the Grand Metrolink station. A few of the key partners are listed here on the slide, and the funding for this project is coming together piece by piece. Total estimated cost in this corridor is approximately $46 million, but we've already had private commitments from donors totaling nearly $8 million, and we've been extremely successful in securing federal funds as well, with over $23 million committed to date. Next slide. As we continue to assemble the funding for the project, happy to report that Phase 1 between Fairground Park and Page Boulevard was awarded $15 million in a federal program called the RAISE Grant. So that was a great success for the project that came about in November of 2021. That created phases for this North Connector between Fairground Park and the Grand Metrolink station. But GRG and our partners have continued to seek out federal funds for those phases, and happy to report that along Spring Avenue between Page Boulevard and St. Louis University, we've secured an additional $6 million in transportation alternative funding and $2.5 million for a community project funding through former Senator Blunt's office. St. Louis Avenue is listed here. It's approximately $12.9 million.
Thank you, Lonnie. Work in this segment was launched on an engagement platform. We have been in the community listening to your needs and concerns since 2020. We've engaged a working group and community advisory committee to help drive the work, and we continue to conduct regular engagement activities in the community to make certain people are aware of the project and also have an opportunity to participate. I would like to take a moment to acknowledge all of our former and current working group members and advisory committee members who have given so many hours of their time to see this project to fruition. Thank you all. Community feedback informs and drives design. What we hear from the community is the basis for the design team's work. This is why it is so important that we hear from you, not only right now, but throughout the entire Greenway planning, design, and development process and beyond. So without further ado, let's meet the design team and learn more about the design for the Brickline Greenway North Connector.
So let's talk about what we heard during this design process. Hi, my name is Hannah Higgins. I am a project manager with Smith Group, leading the design for the Brickline Greenway North Connector. And we want to share what we've been hearing from everyone. So as Shaughnessy mentioned, we've had a lot of great events happen recently. We've had from the Northside Night Out, we've had community mailers go out. We were even out having some open office hours early in January. This is not stopping. This will continue on through. We've got tonight's meeting. We have the online survey that was part of the mailer. We'll continue to update that, have new questions as the project moves forward. We got some fun event planned for April, and also we'll come back to the community in June. So what did we hear? What have we heard in all these engagement events? The top topics that we've been hearing is, number one, has been safety. We understand Grand is definitely a very hazardous street. It's one of the most dangerous in the country, and also is extremely heavily used, not only from a vehicle standpoint, but also a transit standpoint. So the desire to make this better for pedestrians, cyclists, with better lighting, signage, these were very common comments. Also heard a lot about making sure that we get some improvements happening on the opposite side of the street. Really is important to balance the improvements so that the full corridor gets improved. We also heard a lot about maintenance. Trees and landscape are great. Getting that green out there is definitely an interest. As you can see, that was also a common comment, but the key was that it must be maintained. And so that's definitely an attitude that we have evoked through our design, and also have been working closely with GRG with how this will be handled in the future. But kind of going back to why this corridor, the safety and the connection. This, as I mentioned, Grand is just extremely unsafe. A lot of asphalt. It's treated kind of like a highway. People tend to speed through here. A lot of issues. And so we want to make sure that we improve the safety and the user experience. And also, this is such a major connection, as Shaughnessy and Lonnie talked about. This corridor provides a key link in the larger Brickline system and really helps connect all those four major parks through the central city. And so we've taken all these things we've heard, we've taken the GRG goals, what are we trying to do with this project? And we really are looking at it through these key principles throughout, from equity, making sure that's collaborative, engaging with the community. We're taking advantage of all these opportunities that we have, making sure that we're looking at sustainable options, making sure we're very transparent with what's coming and where the design is coming from and how it gets implemented, and be able to back it up. So this has informed our decisions. And so now let's talk about where that has taken us so far. One of the key things that we talked about was that equity and balancing it, and from the engagement that we've had and how important it was to do the opposite side of the street. GRG, our design team in the city of St. Louis, have been working together for grant applications, and we've actually submitted a couple. We're hoping to hear back in this summer to actually get funding to extend this. So if this is awarded, we're hoping to do sidewalks, curb extensions, bump outs, pedestrian refuge islands, lighting and landscaping on the opposite side of the street through this corridor. So really excited, we're hopeful. But let's now dive into what we're doing as part of the RAISE grant that Lonnie mentioned on the Greenway for the North Connector. I'm actually going to pass it to my colleague.
Hello, everyone. I'm Oliver Kiley, landscape architect with Smith Group, also part of the design team working with GRG on this exciting project. So we want to provide an overview of the design, just kind of a high-level look at what the corridor could look like as we move along it. And we're going to start at the south, and we're south of Page Boulevard and MLK and south of Cass Ave, and kind of work our way north. So if you're looking at this map, north is to the right, where Natural Bridge is and where Fairgrounds Park is. So we're going to start in the south. And so this section of Spring is a fairly narrow section of street right-of-way. So the right-of-way, that's the public space. Usually from the sidewalk to sidewalk. That's only about 56 feet wide along Spring Street today. And so as we look at what the Greenway could look like along this section of the street, you can see on the next slide what that might look like. So moving where the curbing is, creating a landscape and amenity zone, and then the trail itself can run along there. And this would be designed as a shared use section of trail, so a much wider space for both bicyclists and pedestrians to use to be able to move along the Greenway. And you can see from the image here, the Greenway along its length also includes lighting, improved lighting both for the street and for the Greenway side, landscape amenities like seats, waste receptacles, and then special pavings that tie, excuse me, into the character of the Greenway. So as we head further north, we make that little jog that Hannah mentioned down Cass Ave and over to Grand. And so Cass Ave is a little bit wider. It's about 80 feet wide. And this is a section of road today that's has 4 travel lanes, so 2 lanes in each direction. The outside lanes are really wide, and sometimes cars are parking in there. It's a lot of pavement space, though. So the design of the Greenway, we'll start to look at how that space can be reconfigured. So again, you can see as the Greenway wraps the corner, similar to Spring, there would be an amenity zone, and then the central part of the Greenway trail. And then one thing just to point out on the Greenway, you can see that that darker color band running through the middle of it. That's kind of a key signifier for the Brickline Greenway. And you'll see as we move through these cross sections where that band of special paving is as part of the identifier for this. And then just a note, on Cass Ave, on the opposite side of the street, there are improvements planned for this block if that additional grant funding is successfully awarded to this project. So that'll be able to do improvements to all of Cass Ave. Okay, next slide. So as we transition onto Grand itself, onto North Grand, it's important to recognize that this is a pretty distinct and also very unique corridor within the city. And there's a lot of conditions here that are going to change along the length of the corridor. So the relationship of buildings to the street, how close they are. There's also lots of properties that are vacant. And so how does the edge of the Greenway change as it responds to those different land uses will be important. Along Grand Ave, as Hannah had mentioned, this is one of the most heavily used transit corridors in the city. So we want to make sure that people have comfortable access to bus stops on both sides of the street. That'll be critical. There is parking on street on many sections along here. There's alleyways and driveways that are crossing the Greenway along Grand that we need to be mindful of. And then one of the other major considerations is that there are major underground utilities along Grand that are also going to be driving and dictating the design the Greenway and of the whole street and how it changes along the corridor. So as we head north from Cass, this first section of Grand Ave is also 80 feet wide. So you can see what that existing condition looks like today. And those colored tubes coming out from the bottom of the image, those are all different utilities. So water mains, gas lines, stormwater drains. And so a lot of those utilities are things that we have to be mindful of and be working around as we look at the design in the cross section of the Greenway. But what's proposed here is what you see on the screen now. And so the idea with this is that we are essentially establishing two kind of parts of the Greenway from what's normally the sidewalk all the way out towards the road curb. And the idea is that that brick centerline band goes through the middle of this whole Greenway section. And on one side, you have kind of the local route, if you were to think about this in expressway terms, where traffic might be a little bit slower moving, that people can get access into buildings and adjacent properties. You have that amenity zone in the middle that provides space for shade trees and seating and landscape and lighting. And then you have the wider kind of express lane for the Greenway that can carry more of the through traffic for people moving along the corridor. And then a small buffer zone between that and getting out to the roadway. And then again, you can see on the opposite side of the street that if the additional grant funding comes through, there's opportunities for streetscape, lighting, and sidewalk improvements on that side of the street as well. Okay, so as we move forward, similar kind of pattern, but we are now widening out to 100-foot right away. You can see here, there's a very large storm sewer and sewer underneath the roadway there. The sidewalk space today widens out. The road is still generally 4 travel lanes with now kind of room for parking on both sides of the street. And so when we get to the next slide, which shows the proposed Greenway design, you can see how that brick center line kind of goes through the center of that whole Greenway zone. You still have the idea of the kind of local and the express lane with that amenity zone in the middle. But as we have more right-of-way space, we're actually able to now pick up a second row of trees that provide additional buffering and separation from the roadway. The roadway itself along all of this project along Grand would be reconfiguring the road down from its 4 lanes today to 3 lanes with parking generally on both sides of the street, as you can see here. And of course, potential improvements on the opposite side of the street if that funding comes through. And then lastly, the section furthest to the north. So this takes us up from essentially St. Louis Ave north all the way up to Natural Bridge. And this is a very wide section of road corridor. This is 120 feet wide. And you can see kind of what that is looking like in its existing condition today, and then in the proposed condition in the future. So again, that same idea, the local route, we're able to have a lot of these spaces be wider. The express route, that center line identifier going down the middle of that overall Brickline zone. And then in this case, we are able to use up some of that additional right-of-way space with a wider buffer and amenity zone, which will also be a great spot as we look to do transit improvements and create some additional space around transit stops. And then just a note about the overall design too. You see right to the left of that center line, what we call a valley gutter. So a lot of this area, the storm drainage will actually drain down into that line and help direct water into those landscape planters that can help collect, store, infiltrate, and help manage rainwater that's falling within the Greenway zone and manage that in a more sustainable fashion.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Young, also with Smith Group. I'm a landscape architect and urban designer, and it's nice to virtually be here with all of you tonight. Oliver talked a lot about what's kind of going on between intersections and on these blocks as a typical condition throughout this corridor. But another key component of this design is around intersections and intersection improvements. A lot of the safety components that we're designing and proposing for this corridor happen at these intersections, and you can kind of see that in this view here. So you can see raised crosswalks that will slow through traffic on those side streets, pedestrian refuge islands for pedestrians and cyclists crossing those multi-lane streets on Grand. You can see some of the hints of wayfinding and trying to make it clear for cyclists and pedestrians actually in the paving. And you can see the bus pull-off zone there as well, so that the buses can pull to the side and are in lane for boarding and alighting. We also wanted to show you as a potential user of this design what it would look like on the ground level. So this is the existing conditions, and this is showing you a photorealistic rendering of what this might look like in the future. Obviously, we're still in design. Some of these components and paving colors and things like that are subject to change, but from a user, you can kind of get an idea of what the space and what this greenway might start to feel like. So that's kind of wraps up our design process portion, and we want to talk to you about what's coming. There's a lot of exciting things to come. So as we mentioned earlier, this is just phase one, that darker green bar on this aerial map. And there's also phase two and phase three, which are to come. And this timeline kind of shows you a little bit of that. You can see phase two and three called out later this spring or early summer, beginning around that time. And I think the key thing with this graphic is that the community engagement, that orange bar, is continuing throughout this process and throughout these phases. And the feedback that we receive from the community is absolutely critical as a part of this process. And so thankful that you're here. And I think we have some information. We'd love to hear from you. So we'd like for you to visit the GRG website, which is linked here, and take a little bit of time, if you don't mind, to respond to the survey that's linked on the website. Or if you would prefer to receive a hard copy of that survey or respond to the survey via phone, there's an email address and a phone number here for your use. So thank you very much.